Remember Wednesday nights in the early 80s? Back when ABC owned our living rooms and Lee Majors was jumping trucks like gravity was just a suggestion? The Fall Guy wasn't just another action show. It was our weekly reminder that the best heroes were the ones crazy enough to do their own stunts. Here are 20 wild facts about the Fall Guy that'll blow your mind, plus one bonus secret that changes everything you thought you knew about Lee Majors and 80s television. Fact 1. When America's favorite stuntman hit rock bottom. Colt Seavers was a Hollywood stuntman who moonlighted as a bounty hunter, using every trick he learned, jumping motorcycles and crashing cars to catch bail jumpers. Lee Majors played him like a cross between Burt Reynolds and your favorite uncle, charming, competent, and just reckless enough to keep things interesting. The show launched to solid ratings. By 1983, the same year Return of the Jedi hit theaters, The Fall Guy was sitting pretty at number 14 in the national ratings. Then the bottom fell out faster than a stunt car off Mulholland Drive. 5 years later, the show had crashed from number 14 all the way down to number 80, barely hanging on while Miami Vice and the A-Team grabbed our attention. If network mathematics felt brutal, wait until you see what General Motors was calculating. Fact 2. The truck surgery that belonged in a Frankenstein movie. General Motors looked at the Fall Guy's requirements and decided to perform automotive surgery that would have impressed Dr. Frankenstein. Colt Seavers drove what looked like a regular GMC pickup, the kind of truck your dad used for weekend hardware store runs. But underneath, GM engineers had gone completely mad scientist. They relocated the engine from under the hood to the middle of the chassis, right beneath where Colt and his passengers were sitting. The logic was twisted but brilliant. When you launch a 3-ton pickup truck 40 feet through the air on national television, back when stunts were real, not computer-generated, physics has opinions about where different parts want to go. With the engine repositioned, the truck could stick its landings instead of nosediving into pavement. Those relocated engines were just the beginning of GM's headaches.
I've never been with anything less than a 9. So fine.
Fact 3. When TV stars decided to sing their own theme songs. Back in '81, most television theme songs were handled by anonymous studio musicians who disappeared into the credits faster than cocaine at Studio 54. Lee Majors decided that system needed renovation. Here was a guy who'd proven he could make jumping cars look easy on the $6 Million Man, and now he wanted to sing his way into our living rooms. Unknown Stuntman wasn't just the theme song, it was Lee Majors himself, channeling his inner Glen Campbell while singing about Hollywood's invisible heroes.
Took the credit for your second symphony.
Radio star, video killed the radio.
And now we meet.
This was the same year MTV launched with Video Killed the Radio Star, and suddenly everyone thought they could be a recording artist. But Majors pulled it off.
I've been on fire with Sally Field, gone fast with a girl named Bo.
The song was so perfectly cheesy that they released it as a legitimate single. Think the theme song was personal? The opening credits were about to rewrite television history.
Well, I'm not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've been seen with Farrah.
Fact 4. The opening credits that doubled as film school. Those opening titles weren't just pretty pictures of trucks defying gravity. They were weekly education in stunt work that most of us never realized we were getting. Glen A. Larson, the mastermind behind Battlestar Galactica and Knight Rider, mixed brand new Fall Guy footage with genuine stunt clips from actual Hollywood movies that predated the show by years. Every Wednesday night, we were watching a greatest hits compilation of automotive mayhem spanning the entire history of movie stunts. It was like getting a crash course in stunt history, except the classroom was our living room, and the textbook exploded every few seconds. The opening became a love letter to every stuntman who ever risked his neck for a 5-second scene most audiences forgot before the next commercial.
We didn't sell this in a conventional way. This is the most unusual pitch that ever took place in television.
Fact 5. The pitch meeting that should have been recorded. Picture Glen A. Larson walking into ABC and pitching The Fall Guy to executives, still trying to figure out why people loved watching Tom Selleck solve crimes in Hawaiian shirts. Here's the concept: Hollywood stuntman, part-time bounty hunter. The network suits probably stared at him like he'd suggested making a sitcom about nuclear waste disposal. A guy who jumps motorcycles for a living, using those same skills to hunt down criminals who jumped bail? But Larson understood something about American audiences that network executives missed. We didn't just want heroes. We wanted heroes whose day jobs were cooler than anything we'd ever do. Colt Seavers was proving that specialized knowledge could be weaponized in the most entertaining ways possible. Fact 6. The truck graveyard that broke General Motors' budget. The Fall Guy consumed pickup trucks like Dynasty consumed shoulder pads and cocaine subplots. GM executives thought they were making the deal of the decade. Provide vehicles at cost. Receive massive weekly advertising on network television. What they didn't anticipate was the sheer volume of destruction that 23 episodes per season would require. The production team mixed and matched truck parts like they were running a chop shop. One week, viewers would see a 1980 Chevy with distinctive chrome details. The following week, that same truck would magically transform into a 1981 GMC with completely different features. GM was supplying replacement parts so frantically that the continuity department surrendered to the chaos and hoped audiences were too distracted by explosions to notice. The vehicle consumption was impressive, but the production schedule was absolutely relentless.
Look, I don't care if they're Eagles. It's you and no one else.
Fact 7. The network television marathon that put modern shows to shame. The Fall Guy didn't mess around with shortened seasons that make modern television feel like part-time commitment. 5 seasons, 113 episodes total.
This doesn't make sense. Some of the top race drivers in the country are going to be in this race.
From November 4th, 1981 to May 2nd, 1986. For those keeping track,
Silly to be in America and for none of them to mention Vietnam as if nothing was happening.
that was the stretch when we went from arguing about John Lennon's death to watching the Challenger explosion. When ABC committed, they went full throttle with episode counts that would terrify today's producers. 23 episodes for Season 1, 23 for Season 2, maintaining that breakneck pace like they were manufacturing widgets instead of creating weekly entertainment featuring elaborate stunts and production values that belonged in movie theaters. That production schedule was impressive, but the creative control situation was practically revolutionary.
But you can't say anything yet because the people who did the pilot don't know that we're going to go off in another direction.
Fact 8. The producer credit that rewrote Hollywood rules. While most action stars were content to show up, perform stunts, and cash paychecks, Lee Majors had bigger plans for his television comeback. Right there, in the opening credits, viewers saw something unusual for early 80s television. Lee Majors, producer. This wasn't honorary recognition or contract padding. Majors was legitimately involved in creating the show, from approving dangerous stunts to weighing in on storylines that tested the boundaries of physics and common sense. For an action star to possess that level of creative control was almost unheard of when networks typically kept actors on tight leashes. Majors understood that The Fall Guy wasn't just his comeback vehicle. It was his responsibility to get absolutely right. Fact 9. The Halloween episode that assembled Hollywood royalty. October 31st, 1984 produced a Fall Guy episode that read like the guest list at the most exclusive Halloween party in Los Angeles. First, they landed Elvira, Cassandra Peterson's horror hostess character, who was dominating late-night television. But that was just the opening act for a genuine Hollywood dynasty reunion. The casting director managed to assemble the entire Carradine acting family. John Carradine, the legendary character actor who'd been frightening audiences since the 30s, joined by his sons Keith, Robert, and David. Keith was riding high from Kung Fu. David was establishing himself as the go-to guy for eccentric villains. It was like watching a Hollywood family reunion where everyone stayed in character, and explosions kept happening in the background. The guest stars were impressive, but the merchandising strategy was about to conquer multiple continents. Fact 10. The marketing invasion that crossed every border. Milton Bradley didn't waste time jumping on the Fall Guy bandwagon. They had their board game ready for Christmas shopping in '81. But American toy stores were just the beachhead for a multimedia invasion. In Britain, Look In magazine commissioned a serialized Fall Guy comic strip drawn by Jim Bikey. Meanwhile, UK developer Elite Systems was programming what might have been the first truly interactive Fall Guy experience, a video game that let players control the truck-jumping action from their living rooms. From board games, to comic strips, to primitive video games, the Fall Guy was everywhere in the early '80s.
I was getting ready for the next shot. This makeup takes a little longer than normal.
Fact 11. The show that refused to stay canceled. When the Fall Guy ended its original ABC run in May of '86, the same month we were watching Top Gun in theaters, most canceled shows would quietly disappear into syndication limbo. Colt Seavers had other plans. CBS immediately grabbed the show for their late movie slot, giving insomniacs and third-shift workers their weekly dose of automotive stunts. From there, the show bounced through cable television like a perfectly executed stunt car ricochet. FX kept it alive through the '90s. H&I picked it up in 2024. The UK's Legend channel started broadcasting it in 2025, and if you've got Amazon Prime Video, you can binge the first 2 seasons right now. If TV archaeology like this reminds you why '80s television was special, there's another deep dive coming your way. 20 wild facts about Knight Rider that'll show up on your screen soon.
We both help you under one condition.
You are in no position to bargain.
Oh, yes, we are.
Fact 12. The cinematic approach that separated quality from quantity. While most television shows in 1981 were cranked out on sound stages with 3 camera setups, The Fall Guy chose the expensive path. Single camera production, 47 to 48-minute episodes, location shooting throughout Los Angeles that turned the entire city into Colt Seavers' personal playground. This wasn't television pretending to be television. This was a weekly movie featuring the same indestructible characters and physics-defying truck.
You can tell he was on an expense account. A bottle of that expensive champagne. What's his name?
Fact 13. The composer cavalry that scored weekly mayhem. The Fall Guy didn't settle for hiring one composer. They recruited a revolving supergroup of television and film music legends. Stu Phillips, the genius behind the soaring Battlestar Galactica theme. Ron Rahman, Morton Stevens, Frank Duvall, Tom Worrell, Dennis McCarthy. Reading the composer credits was like scanning the liner notes for a greatest hits album of 70s and 80s entertainment music. Fact 14. The star vehicles that became more famous than most actors. Every great television detective had a signature vehicle. Magnum's Ferrari, the Duke's General Lee, Starsky and Hutch's striped Torino. Colt Seavers had 2 trucks that shared star billing. The production team maintained a 1981 GMC K2500 wide-side Sierra Grande and a 1980 GMC K25 wide-side High Sierra as their primary hero vehicles. These weren't just props with engines. They were legitimate co-stars, as recognizable as Lee Majors himself.
Tell he was on an expense account. A bottle of that expensive champagne. What's his name?
Fact 15. The creator's musical moonlighting that made everything personal. Glen A. Larson wasn't satisfied with just creating, writing, and producing The Fall Guy. He wanted to write the songs too. Collaborating with Dave Somerville and Gail Jensen, Larson co-wrote Unknown Stuntman, the theme song Lee Majors performed with conviction that made you believe he'd been waiting his entire career to sing about Hollywood's invisible heroes. Consider the level of creative control. The man who invented the entire premise also crafted the lyrics that millions of Americans hummed along to every Wednesday night for 5 years. It was creative ownership taken to its logical extreme.
I get the picture, Sheriff. I thought you would.
Fact 16. The ratings peak that proved we were all paying attention. 1982 to 83. The Fall Guy climbed to number 14 in national television ratings. The same year we were debating whether computers would ever be useful for anything besides playing Pac-Man. That meant more Americans were tuning in to watch Colt Seavers jump trucks than were watching most of prime-time entertainment in the early 80s. We didn't want another secret agent or another cop. We wanted a regular guy with an extraordinary job who happened to excel at catching people who thought they were smarter than the system.
Well, not exactly guarantee it, but I guess it depends on how good an actress you are.
Fact 17. The British comic strip that proved stories travel. While American kids were playing with Fall Guy action figures, British kids were getting their weekly dose of stunt work through an entirely different medium. Look In magazine commissioned Jim Bakey to create a serialized comic strip adaptation. British fans could follow illustrated versions of Colt's adventures when the television episodes weren't available on local channels. This was international storytelling in the pre-internet age.
As soon as you feel like it. Wait a minute, we're entitled to make that call now.
Fact 18. The video game that predicted interactive entertainment. Elite Systems looked at the Fall Guy and saw the future. Instead of just watching Colt Seavers make impossible decisions, players could actually control the action. Their 1984 video game offered something revolutionary for its time: the chance to be the stuntman, making split-second decisions about when to accelerate, brake, or attempt jumps that should have resulted in spectacular crashes. By today's standards, the technology was primitive. But for kids in '84 who were still impressed by Atari graphics, it was mind-blowing. It was the first real taste of what it might feel like to live inside your favorite television show.
Afraid it's a little late for that, Sheriff. Oh, yeah, I suppose you're right.
Fact 19. The production output that put modern television to shame. 113 episodes total. Today's prestige television considers 8 episodes a complete season and takes 2 years between releases. The Fall Guy was producing nearly 25 hours of original content annually, with production values that belonged in movie theaters. That kind of output demanded assembly line efficiency that most contemporary shows couldn't sustain for 5 months, let alone 5 years. It was television production as industrial manufacturing. Except instead of widgets, it was weekly adventures featuring death-defying stunts and elaborate chase sequences. The volume was impressive, but the legacy was about to come full circle.
For the woman you shot in the bank.
Fact 20. The Hollywood ending that brought everyone home. 43 years after Colt Seavers first jumped a truck on network television, Hollywood decided it was time for the ultimate stunt, bringing the Fall Guy back to life for a new generation. The feature film released May 3, 2024 wasn't just another reboot. It was a reunion that brought Lee Majors and Heather Thomas back together for a special cameo appearance. The original Colt Seavers and Jody Banks, decades older but still recognizable, appearing on screen together to pass the torch to Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. For those of us who spent Wednesday nights in the early 80s watching Lee Majors jump trucks and crack jokes, seeing him back in the world of the Fall Guy was like running into an old friend who'd aged well and still remembered all the best stories.
I've never been with anything less than a 9, so fine.
Bonus fact: the singing trend that started with one stuntman's ego. Here's the final piece of evidence. Lee Majors singing Unknown Stuntman created a trend that nobody noticed while it was happening, but everyone copied for the next decade. Throughout the 80s, more television stars began performing their own theme songs, but the Fall Guy was ground zero for that movement. It was the moment when a leading man decided that faceless studio singers shouldn't get to define his character every week.